It's time to texture these bad boys, finally, after hinting at it for so long. So we added some simple materials, and that is actually fine for some types of objects. Like you might actually have a plate and go like, it's just white plate. Doesn't need any texture, but most things need texture. So I'm going to select my table floor here. I'm going to go to the material panel right here, and I'm going to add a new material since it doesn't have one. And let's look at how to add a texture. So right here where we've got base color, if we want to add a color texture, we just click on this little yellow dot next to it. I know that's not clear. It will become clear when I show you nodes. But when I click this, you get this slide out menu with a bunch of different options here. And the one that I'm looking for says image texture. Okay, so now I can hit open. And just to demonstrate this, I'm going to select a wood texture that I downloaded off the internet just to show you how this works. Now, on this note, if you happen to see this, if you use an image texture that you find online, it's because there is a new feature. There's a purpose. There's a new feature in Blender 5.0 where if it identifies in the name anything from the number 1000 to 2000, I think, it'll think that is a UDIM, which is a completely whole production, professional workflow kind of thing. It'll think it's a UDIM. And anyways, what you need to do is then change this to single image. But most of the time, most images, if it doesn't have those numbers, a string at the end, it should just load in fine. Anyways, let's say you had an image like this. You wanted the table to look wood, right? We're not going to do that, but just to show you, you would see it's okay, right? But there is no bump information, okay? And that is because, of course, the 3D software doesn't know that there's supposed to be crevices here, right? Little dips in between the table, the fine tooth grain of it. It has no idea because it's just taken with a single camera. It would have no idea how to guess what that true information should be. I mean, there is technically a way to guess it, but it never really turns out well. So I'm not even going to bother showing you. So most of the time when you're talking about texturing in 3D and using image textures, like textures from the real world, you don't just grab a random image texture that you find online. You need to use PBR Textures, which stands for Physically Based Rendering Textures. And there are many different places that you can get PBR textures from. The best website that I think is Poliigon, Poliigon.com. The link is below. And I think it's the best website because it's my website. It's my company, which I created 10 years ago, and it is now the fastest growing texture library online. So we've got photographers all over the world, and they use specialized equipment to go out into the world, and they capture surfaces, usually like photograph the surface like hundreds of times, which is what enables you to actually capture all of that height information, the bump, the shininess, reflectiveness of materials, and actually capture all of the maps that you can see here. For example, these weird looking maps is exactly what Blender needs to make the material look realistic. So we've got a bunch of different categories. Obviously, like almost anything you want to create, you can find the textures on here. But for just this tutorial, if you go to poliigon.com/donut, the link for that is also below. But this has the 6 textures that you'll actually need to follow along for this video. They're all free. We've made them free. All you need to do is get a free account, and you can download all of those by just clicking them and then hitting download. And also, if you scroll down, we've got some premium textures here if you have a subscription with us that you could use for the cafe scene that we're making to kind of spruce it up, make it your own, add some variation there. So we've included some ones here that go well with the scene. And if you use this link, you'll get 10% off any plan you choose. So the first texture I want you to start with is going to be our cafe table, and obviously you could use any text for that. You could use some of the ones down there if you wanted to, but I want you to start with this one, this concrete texture, because we're going to make this look like a concrete table, something that a lot of cafes can sometimes have. Now we actually have a Blender add-on which makes downloading and importing these things even simpler, but I want to give you the traditional way to import PBR textures first so that you know how to use PBR textures just flat, and then I want to show you the easy way after. So once you've got your free account, you can come back here and you can click on download, this big download button. So that'll give you an 8K texture. You probably don't need it. You could probably get by with 4, but I'm going to get the 8K just to show you how it looks. Now this will download a zip file like here. Okay, so it should be fairly quick. It's about 289 megs. Once you've downloaded this texture, I need you to unzip it. So with Windows, you just right click and go extract all. If you're on a Mac, you just double click it and it should just unzip itself. Now that I've got that, you can see you've got like a preview image there. We don't worry about that. It's the stuff that's in here. This is the good stuff. This is the one we actually need to use. So I'm going to just copy this folder, location, and then back in Blender for my selected plane here, underneath base color, I'm just going to, just like before, select image texture if you haven't already. Then I'm going to click open. And then a lot of these images look pretty similar. There's very little detail across them. There is some, but the one we're looking for is underscore base color. So that is the one we're going to start with. Okay, so this has given us a nice, clean, delit concrete floor texture, but the same problem. We don't have that height information there. And that's because, just like before, we've only loaded in information into the base color. So it's almost like this has been printed on cardboard. That's kind of the appearance there. So we need to load in the other PBR texture maps, they're called, all of those different images that we downloaded. And we could import and do them the same way by like clicking this little dot and then go image texture, but it's very fiddly. And this view here, you can probably tell is like, it's not designed for like complex texturing work. If you want to do complex texturing work, you should click on the shading tab at the top of your screen. Now this view looks completely different. You've got a 3D view at the top. You've got these nodes here, which are very useful. And then you got 2 over here that I think are kind of pointless. I don't really think they should be here. I've never really wanted them. So I'm going to right click on the like the divider between these little windows here. I'm going to say join left, and then I'm going to do the same for the bottom, join left. And then I want to flip it because I don't really like having like the top view and this. It's like, it's too widescreen to like look at things like this. So instead I'm going to right click this, say join down, and then at the top of my screen here, the top of the little divider there, until I get that little arrows, I'm going to right click and then I'm going to say vertical split. And then to make this one on the right hand side, those same shader nodes that we had from before, click from this little drop down at the top. By the way, if you don't see it, you just have to like middle mouse, like grab and pull across, and you will get all the way to the end there. But yeah, if I click that and then go shader editor, then close this by hitting the N key. It's a lot of steps. But now I have my shader nodes. So the shader nodes over here, this is actually the same information as what we have in our material over here. For example, if I was to adjust this roughness, you can see that it's adjusting both of those values there. And when we added in this and we clicked image texture, it was basically in the background adding in this node here, which loaded in the image texture. So this is it's a simplified view. If you want to do like small changes to a material, you use this panel here. If you want to do anything more complex than that, you use the shader nodes here. And it's pretty self-explanatory to understand how shader nodes work. It's like over here, this is your material output. It's the final material. And generally you have a shader, which is something like this, Principled BSDF. That is the shader that you use for like 99% of materials now. And then you just have a bunch of values. And then you can connect things into this to do different things. And I'm going to show you how we can like tweak this texture and do a bunch of stuff. But first, let's load in some of those PBR texture maps. By the way, if you're wondering, the view on the left-hand side of the screen here, why does this look different? This is because, and again, a middle mouse drag along the top there, we talked about the 3D viewport. We talked about the rendered view mode. We didn't talk about this one. This is the material preview mode. And it's literally designed for previewing materials because it loads in a like fake world view around it called an HDR, which you can actually swap out here. So you can see, different types of environments, but it's a way to like quickly visualize a material without having to like change a bunch of lighting to understand how the material is going to look, because materials look very different in different lighting setups. So it's actually a very useful mode, and it makes sense. It's called Material Preview. So let's load in another image. So I'm going to hit, I could hit Shift A, or I could just go Add at the top of the screen there. It's cool that Blender's hotkeys are the exact same ones everywhere. So Shift A is the same as Shift A over there, right? Add. And I'm going to go Texture, and I'm going to say Image Texture. Okay. And now it's just asking where you want to drop it. So I can just drop it anywhere. And I'm going to click Open. Then I'm going to navigate to that folder where all of the images are. And the first one I'm going to load in is this one called _normal, the purple one. And you can remember it as the normal map because it's normal to ask, why is that purple? That's how I remember it. Then just hit Open on that. And the place that you would put that, you could guess, is the normal input, that little purple input there on our shader there. So the way you connect something to something else is you just, where there's a point, you just click that point and you just drag out and connect it to another point, and then you release. And then it is connected. Now you can see that there is some bump information now, but you wouldn't know it, but this is actually the wrong, it's partly the way to connect something, but we need to do something else. First of all, you can see that between here and here, whoops, we've gone from a yellow input to a purple input. Now it's okay to go from like yellow to gray because gray just means grayscale. So you can go from color information to gray information. That's fine. But normal is like vector information. Yeah, without getting technical, like the normal is the way the faces, like that invisible line of the faces. And this is like faking which direction each of those pixels has. But basically, we need to add something between here and here to convert this from color information into vector information. And we can do that by hitting Shift A to add again, and then going to Displacement in this dropdown and clicking Normal Map. You can also, if you can't find it, you can go to the search bar and you can type in Normal Map as well. All right, once you've got this normal map, you then just need to drag it over that line until it lights up, and then you just want to do a single click and it will connect it. Okay, so now it is correctly connected, but still, it's just not quite right. There is a lot of steps to like manually connecting PBR texture maps, which is why I want to show you the fast way to do this after this. But I need to show you this because you might be using PBR texture maps from elsewhere or from like production files and stuff, and you need to know how to actually manually connect them. So when you're working with PBR texture maps, the only texture that should have the color space sRGB is your base color, okay? Every other map should have the color space set to non-color. And again, without getting technical, I keep saying that because these shaders are very technical. It basically, it's converting it to linear space. So it's using that, or it's actually not doing any conversion. It's just saying like, let's use the raw values from that and just use it linear. Anyway. Other software sometimes call those utility maps, but Blender is non-color data. Okay, so now that we've got that, look, we've got bump across our concrete there. And if we went into the rendered view at the top there, you could see if I took my lamp at the top there, and then I brought this like way down to the plane there, you can see we get this like nice gritty shadows cast across the surface there. And this is how you make materials that look realistic. You can't get this information any other way than by very expensively capturing these surfaces. And I know that because I've seen the bills. I know how much it costs to capture surfaces like this. And it can be thousands. That's where we started. And over the years, we've got that price way, way down. But it's a very expensive capturing process. It's not easy to do. It's not fun. It's very boring to do. So unless you really want to go into that space, it's not something you want to try to do. Anyways, so that's the normal map, but there is another map which is useful. So I'm going to hit Shift A to add another map, and I'm going to say Texture, and I'm looking for Image Texture, okay? And then I'm going to click Open on this, and this time I'm looking for the one with underscore roughness at the end of the name. Okay, and then just like before, I need to make sure my color space is set to non-color data. And then finally, I want to drag this out to plug into my roughness input. Now, when you do that, you'll see that the material goes very, very dull. So it was like, before when we set this to like shiny like this, when we connect this in here, it goes dull because concrete is dull. So this is actually like the correct value for concrete. We like calibrated it to make sure. So this is that. Now, it's very often that you actually want to customize something. Like, for example, cafe tables often have concrete that has been like buffed or like coated in some sort of gloss or something like that, or an epoxy. So it's totally fine to just want to have like the free control of the slider there and not use it. Like the maps are there if you need them, right? If you really want to go for something realistic, you would use them all, but sometimes you don't, and it's totally fine to just disconnect them. Now, the other maps here, by the way, if you're curious, this yellow one, ORM, we don't use that in Blender. That's used by game engines. Poliigon provides them because we, serve all the different renderers and softwares out there. Displacement is a different method than normal map. We're actually going to use that on the donut. Metallic is if the material contains metal. That's the only time you would use that. And then the other one is occlusion map, an ambient occlusion map. That's if there's like deep crevices, like if it's like a pebble pathway or something like that. This is the actual like shadows that like collects inside of crevices. But we don't need that. Honestly, most of the time, these three maps, the base color, the normal map, and the roughness, that is like 90% of materials. And that's really all that you need for those. But it is still very finicky to do this, right? Am I wrong? Like having to remember the color space and connect this and convert that, and like even just these three things was like 30 clicks. So that is why most people that are dealing with PBR textures don't want to have to do this. They want to use an add-on like the Poliigon add-on. So at the top of the page on poliigon.com/donut, you can click this link that says download Poliigon add-on, or you can just go to /Blender. This will show you how to install it. If you don't want to read that, I'll show you how to do it right now. Unlike before, when you have your zip file, do not unzip it. Blender actually needs this zip in order to properly install it. So what you do is you drag out and you release the zip file from anywhere on the computer, and then it will say, install this, because it'll recognize it as an add-on, and then you say, yep, install it, and you say, okay. Now, if you go to Edit, Preferences, then go to Add-ons, you should see one there called Poliigon at the top there, which means it has been successfully installed. If it didn't successfully install, maybe you're on a Mac and maybe it actually automatically unzipped itself, in which case you need to rezip it and then drag it over. But yeah, it should install if it is properly zipped. Now, once you have done that, in your 3D viewport over here, if you hit N, which brings up your properties, you should see a tab there that says Poliigon. Then if you just like one click login, this will take you here, and then it will just say login confirmed. Go back into Blender and you should see now we've got materials in a scroll bar, right? Which is pretty cool. And I can type in anything I want. Let's say sprinkles, because I know there's some sprinkles materials here, for example. But you could also browse by category, right? You can look at all the different ones. And importantly, this will actually download it. So one click download like this, and then one click apply. And look at this. All of this has been set up automatically. All of these are automatically set to non-color. We've got the exact, precise, correct use of every single map that is ready to go. But anyway, go back to my previous material here, and let's go to the free category. And then let's use another one. So this speckled glazed ceramic plate. And by the way, you can like click the little drop down there if you want to see something online to get like a better picture for it. You can quickly view it that way. But this is the one we want to apply to our plate here. So with my plate selected, I need to, first of all, hit download. I've already done it, which is why I don't see it, but you hit download and it'll just save it to your folder, which is in your preferences. And then with an object selected, you should be able to hit apply. If you don't see the apply box, it means that you haven't got an object selected, so make sure one is selected in order to click that box. Okay, so we have correctly applied it. You can see all the nodes are there. It's the correct material. Why isn't it showing up on our object? Now, this isn't a fault of the texture or anything like that. This is to do with texture mapping, which is the next thing to understand when it comes to textures, is textures are 2D, right? 2D. And our objects are obviously 3D. So how do you apply a texture to an object? There are so many different ways. And the most common way is to use UV unwrapping, which is the default method, which is what it's actually looking for right now. You can see that's the texture coordinate that it's called in is UVs. And for something like a plate, this is the most simplest thing ever because it's just creating UVs. So in edit mode, so just tab and then select your entire mesh like that. Then hit U for unwrap, and then select unwrap angle based. And look, now the texture has been applied. So what did that actually do? If you go to your UV editing tab at the top of your screen there, just click that, you will see, and let's focus on our object. So number pad right there, and I'll just turn this off so we can see the mesh underneath it, and this one as well. And let's look at the wireframe. Okay, so when we UV unwrapped it, it basically took, in the case of something as flat as this, it just took a snapshot of it and then it put it into the 2D space over here. And from your drop down, you could actually change it to the color map and you could see where it's actually applied to on it. So if I select a point right here on the mesh, you can see which point is actually selected there. So it's right next to this little spot and you can see there is this spot in the ceramic there, okay? And as if I was to select everything with A, and then if I was to hit R to rotate, you can see that the texture is being updated over there. In fact, if I turn off the overlay there just to see it more clearly, and then I turn on the thickness, right? Watch this. As I select everything in edit mode, I can move this around and the texture coordinates are updating in real time. Okay, I can also scale this by hitting S, and this is a really common thing you do because like often a mesh is a completely different size to the captured size of the object. In Poliigon's case, for like detailed textures like this is a 30 by 30 centimeter texture, which is actually probably pretty perfect for a plate. Maybe a plate should be a little bit scaled in like that so that the dots are a little bit bigger. But you could see this is very, very easy to do. Let's go back to layout over here. I'm going to select the icing now, and let's do one that's a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to hit N to bring up the properties again. I'm going to scroll down. So this is in the textures free category, scrolling down, and I'm looking for the strawberry pink glaze. Okay, so we got this strawberry pink texture, right? And this was actually captured by literally pouring a bunch of icing into a pan and then using a stereoscopic scanner to capture it from all dimensions so that you get this like really interesting, like that height information there, the little bumps of like the sugar crystals and stuff popping through. Pretty cool. Anyways, let's hit apply on that. Okay, you can see there is some texture on here, unlike the plate, which came in like nothing. And the reason for that is that when you add in a torus, like certain primitives we added in a torus, it actually comes in with UV unwrapping already created. Okay, so with this one here, so it's already got some UVs, but all that extra work that we did at the bottom there, like extruding some things down, that's all been missed. All of the way that things have been shifted because now it's lumpy, all of that is missing as well. So it would help to actually UV unwrap this again and project these points in a way that actually matches the mesh. So the way to think about this is, what if this mesh was made of paper and we had to lay the paper flat over onto this texture on the left-hand side over here? Where would you place the cuts on the mesh in order to lay it flat? And in the case of something like this, where I would place the cuts would be essentially along the edge, right along here. Okay, so if I Alt-click along that edge there, that should select all the way around it. So do check that it goes all the way around it. If it doesn't, then this next step will come out a little bit funny. Anyways, now that I've selected that, to add a cut, we're going to hit Control E, and then I'm going to select Mark Seam. Okay, and now if I was to go back into wireframe mode here and then just turn off this selection, you should see that we've got a line here that is red. By the way, the one next to it that is purple, that is the one that has the crease, which we added when we used the solidify thing to make it cling to the donut a little bit better. So we've got this line that goes all the way around it, okay? And that has done a cut. Now, nothing has changed yet because we still haven't UV unwrapped it, and that's okay because we need to do one more right in the middle of our donut. If you just select like a random point on the inside of the donut there, then hit your focus key, tilde 3 or numpad period, then you should be able to get in nice and close to it. Now that I'm here, I'm going to do the same thing. So hold down Alt and then select this line here. And now I'm going to hit Control E and do another seam. Okay, now that I've done that, select the entire mesh, and just like before, to unwrap it, it's U. U to unwrap, and unwrap angle based. Now watch what happens. Ready? Wow, that's taking a long time. I don't know why it took that long. I've never seen it stall like that before. Okay, anyways, but look, that is perfect. That's pretty well perfect. I mean, there's probably a little bit of stretching there. There's always going to be stretching, guys. You'll never get it perfect, but as long as the stretching is minimal, like that is pretty well good. It's laid flat, like it looks almost like a cowhide rug, you know, like the dead animal that's been stretched out. It looks like that, but like that's how it works, right? So now if I go into material view, look at this now. We no longer have, I mean, you couldn't really see it clearly before, but you no longer have the stretching that was happening there. It's now been properly stretched across it. It's been properly mapped. And so we've got the texture going all the way in there. Now the scale of this is probably wrong. So I like to change the scale here, and I want to see it over there. So I like to turn off my overlays at the top there. So you can just click that little box. That'll turn off everything so you can't even see what's selected. And now I can just change the scale here. And I could make it bigger or smaller. But yeah, you can play with the size and try and get it good. But why does it look so pale and pink and like not as fun as it was before? Well, it's because when we added in that texture, right, when we clicked this, it overrid the material that we had before. So if you go back to your shading tab, you'll see we got all these textures. And for example, before we had a pink color that was in the base color. Now it's been overridden with the actual strawberry color, which was captured with the camera. However, that strawberry is a little paler than what I want. So I'm actually going to disconnect it because there's not actually that much information in color when it's something like this. All the information is in the bump. So we can really just get by with, actually we don't need metallic because there's definitely no metal in it. I'm going to keep the roughness. That's okay to keep because I just actually want to see that. I'm going to disconnect this, which is the subsurface amount, because I want to control that myself as well. And I'm just going to leave the roughness and the normal, and that's it. Oh, I should explain how I was disconnecting those. So if you hold down Control and then right-click drag, that is how you can disconnect. You can also just click these points and then just disconnect like that, but I prefer to Control, right-click drag, and that'll cut it, sever the tie. And now that I'm here, I'm just going to set these values to what I had before. You know, just playing it by eye, what pink color looks good, set my subsurface amount, radius to 1, and then I'll change this scale value till it looks nice. But there you go. I've now got my fleshy pink donut, but I now have this lovely bubbly sugar crystals, real glaze going on the donut. All right, now let's do another fun one. Let's do the donut itself. Now, this is an interesting one that I had my team do before I started recording. I had them go out and scan a real donut, scan it all the way around, then map it to a torus, and then just get the extracted data. And because this has been already UV unwrapped to map the exact square, just like what we, just like what is captured for this type of map here. Now I can just apply this and it'll automatically do it. So let's do that. Hit apply, and that's pretty good. Like that's nice color. We got nice bump there. If we bring back our icing, you can see that's already pretty good, right? But there is something else that we can do, because when I was talking about shading, you might remember I mentioned that there is 2 different ways of creating bumps, right? And the normal one, the purple one, that's the one we've been using thus far. But there's another one here which comes in disconnected, and it's the displacement map. Now, in the newer versions of the Poliigon Addon, like the next version that's coming out after this, you'll be able to, in this last use box here, you'll have an option that says displacement type. You can currently see it in cycles. So if you use that, you can change it here to displacement and bump. But because Eevee only just came with this feature to enable displacement. It's not yet there. So we would have to connect it ourselves. But essentially all it's doing is when you change that little drop down there, if I grab all these things here, hit G to move them down, and then I sever this tie with the normal, and then I take my displacement. Don't put it in the normal input though, put it in the displacement output of the material here. And what this is doing now is, well, it's still a fake bump, but the other setting that it would enable is here in your material properties, right down here at the bottom where it says displacement, it would change that to displacement and bump. And now if I select my icing, hit H to hide it, you can see that the mesh has changed, right? This is the underlying mesh. It's now kind of expanded. And this is actually the captured data of the height, and it's being projected out of the donut. But it can only use the actual data which is on the mesh, okay? So it currently looks kind of like chunky because there's not enough information. So if you go to your modifier panel here, and then what would we add to add more geometry? We would add in another subdivision surface. And now when we do that, if I increase this, you can see if I increase it 2, 3, 4 times in the viewport, you can see I get a lot more data come through. Okay, I think 3 is about it. I'm just gonna, I'll set render to 3 or 4. Yeah, I'll set it to 3, that should be fine. It comes in a little bit projected. If you wanna change the scale of it, you can also do that here. I could change the scale from 0.2 to about a 0.15. Also, you should see how it looks with your icing. So I'm gonna hit Alt-H. You can see it's actually, yeah, clipping through it. So I'll select my donut again, and I'll change this scale here to about a 0.12, like that. And then, of course, the other value that this is missing is the subsurface scattering, because again, we overrid the placeholder stuff that we had there before. So in here, I'm going to sever this connection, and then I'm going to set this to 1, and then I'll just make this, you know, whatever. And look, you can make this look like so buttery nice. Like, look at how soft and fluffy this donut looks. How cool is that? Like that. Bring it back. Look at that. We've got real icing with the real crystals. We've got real donut that has been captured and projected onto our torus. And that's just 2 materials, which is really cool. The final object to texture is our mug, and I'm going to do that in the next part because we need to go much deeper into UV unwrapping and show how to unwrap a custom object. So join me in the next video.